Hello and welcome to the Business and Banking Dialogue Show, our bi-weekly show which gets you the best of best in terms of topics and in terms of the speakers that we bring across to you. As you know, this is a bi-weekly show now and not a daily show. And I hope the contents and the speakers that we bring across to you are still the best. And change has been done to facilitate people who have started going to the office. So I hope you find these shows on Wednesdays and Fridays as equally interesting as it was before. Today, we have a very interesting topic, and this is on the new umbrella entity proposal that is from the RBI. So we are getting in. So our topic of today is insights into setting up of an umbrella entity for retail payments, and for that we have a speaker who has been instrumental, in some way, in the thoughts of setting up the NPCI. So we'll know more about it. His name is Mr. Sudhakar Kaza. So welcome to the show, Mr. Sudhakar Kaza, and good evening to you.
Good evening, KK. I'm glad to be on the show. I remember I was the first speaker, and when Mani broached the idea of something like this, never ever knew that I will be past 100 when I come back again. It's great that it's a well-established show in the banking community, and senior and leading bankers actually watch our show, and I'm very glad to be a part of this.
Thank you, so. Thank you very much. So words like what you said now gives us a lot more motivation to keep moving along and get the best of speakers and topic to our audience. So let me give a brief to participants who don't know Mr. Sudhakar Kaza, though he is widely known. Briefly, retired as the managing director of Bharatiya Reserve Bank Note Mudran Bank Private Limited in May 2017. As MD, he made significant changes in currency printing management. He was associated with the designing and introduction of the new Mahatma Gandhi series of notes that came in 2016. You have his profile right in front of you. Experience in oversight and the successful conduct of complex global tenders and ensuring significant cost saving to the country, and his acknowledged expertise in CVC guidelines and public procurement. Let's look at his career. In 35 years of his career, he's handled major path-making projects for RBI in leadership roles in the areas of payment systems, currency management, and customer service. In RBI, he led large payment system projects involving the management of diverse interests and navigated the government, banking, and private sector participants towards achievement of a common goal. He was also, besides RBI, he was also the board member of GNK Bank and JNK Bank in 2003-2004, and State Bank of Hyderabad from 2010 to 2014. He was the first CGM of Customer Service Department of RBI. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sudhakar Kaza is an industry thought leader in the areas of currency and payments. Sorry. And he's the industry thought leader in the areas of currency and payment systems and has addressed most of the major conferences globally in currency matters. Today, we are going to talk on the new umbrella entity. So let me, without much ado, let us all understand from Mr. Kaza what went into the making of NPCI. So, Mr. Kaza, welcome to the show, and good evening to you.
Thanks again, KK.
Thank you.
It's a very interesting story as to how NPCI actually came into being. All of you are aware of BIS in BAL, the BAL committee, and it had a committee then called CPSS, Committee for Payment and Settlement Systems. At that time, all the systemically important payment systems had to comply to the Lamfalussy standards. What are the systemically important payment systems? Are payment systems like your RTGS or widespread national clearing systems or your NEFT. Everything comes under the systemically important payment systems. In that, there were certain compliance points which our Reserve Bank of India was missing, and we were finding it difficult to comply to that. A very major and critical point therein was that the central bank should not itself be an operator when it is the regulator of payment systems. Now, as you are aware, at that time, thousands of payments, these clearing houses were being run by State Bank of India. But in all the big centers where RBI was there, RBI was running the clearing houses. And clearing houses where RBI was running accounted for 80-90% of the entire clearing business. Then RTGS started. RBI again was running the RTGS. So the only way to comply with this was that RBI should not be running that. Within the Reserve Bank at that time, you called me a thought leader. We had Mr. R. Gandhi, who was the Chief General Manager in charge of Department of Information and Technology, Information Technology in RBI at that time. He was indeed a great thought leader. So he had actually he was instrumental in setting up a committee of our then ED R.B. Burman and Professor D.V. Patak of IIT Mumbai, and our own S. Ganesh Kumar, who retired as Executive Director of Reserve Bank of India. So this committee went into this job of looking into how to comply with this CPSS standards, and then they recommended that Reserve Bank of India should set up an entity for retail payment systems. It was not called as umbrella organization at that point of time. An entity for retail payment systems, and they set up then give it off to that entity. The task was given, by that time DPSS had come into play, and I was given this task to be to represent RBI to IBA. IBA selected a group of some 10 banks. Most of them were public sector banks, leading the State Bank of India. Of course, there were private sector banks, HDFC, ICICI Bank was there, and then there were foreign banks also, like our Standard Chartered Bank or Citibank. These banks were there. We had 10 banks. A committee was formed under a Chief General Manager, Mr. Natarajan of State Bank of India. What kind of an organization should be formed? There was pressure from Reserve Bank of India that it should be a Section 25 company of that Companies Act, which is now under the new Companies Act, Section 8. That is non-dividend giving company, which in itself was not liked by the banks. If I am asked which was my toughest kind of an assignment, this was the assignment, because here we had a group of 10 banks, all 10 banks not trusting each other, highly suspicious of each other, and there was this big brother bank. This big brother bank was actually running 1,028 clearing houses in the country. Now you have to really understand, be part of the clearing process to understand the power that is wielded by a State Bank of India manager in a rural place, where in a semi-urban place, where he runs the clearing system. He literally is the boss of the banking out there. So State Bank would necessarily be handing out its power to this. Then this entity would also look after some kinds of payment systems which will make redundant the very process. Check truncation was in the offing at that time. This will make redundant intercity clearing. Now intercity clearing was giving a huge float to the banking system. So that was another kind of problem. Then the problem, who will head it? I can tell you straight away, in that now it's too many years have passed, 14 years have passed. In that group of 10 banks, 9 banks were on one side and 1 bank was on one side. Who should head it? So a compromise would be RBI should head it. So a report was given, but there was an unanticipated problem. The trade unions objected to NPCI registration in a very, very big way. Why did the trade unions object? You see, the trade unions were controlling, had a power in their strikes of stopping banking system by actually stopping the functioning of clearing houses. Now, if you start an entity like NPCI, remove it from RBI, remove it from banks and do it somewhere and very quickly make everything electronic, go for check truncation and all, the power of trade unions to stop the movement, entire mercantile business in the country, movement of funds in the country would go away with it. So it took quite some time, and by the time I had moved on, and Mr. Hota, who was the CGM of Department of Payment Systems had effectively moved into the new. It was registered, and then 2008 2009 Hota was full in charge. That it came about. So the issue that I want you to know is NPCI was formed. We all had a dream of having, Mr. Gandhi, me, Ganesh Kumar, and many of us in DPSS, the original people, had a dream of creating platforms which will run globally. The platforms like, all the big companies that you can see, Visa, Mastercard, Amex, that was also behind that. But what was the compulsion? Compulsion, of course, was we needed to comply with the CPSS and the LAMFLC standards. And later, CPSS became, the Committee for Payment and Market Infrastructure, CPMI, and in BIS. And one thing I want to tell you here, that was a period when we were taking off. We still had to follow the international best practices. Now, let me tell you, we are at a stage where the world has to follow the Indian best practices, and we drive CPMI thanks to our Mr. Padmanabhan. When he was ED, was on CPMI. He chaired it also, and he brought in considerable power and weightage to the Reserve Bank of India role there, and a great contribution out there. So this is the entire background of NPCI, formed as a Section 25 company, just with 100 crores, each bank giving only 10 crores. And so that was a bit of point. But when NPCI formed, RBI really, parented it wonderfully. The NFS switch, which was in IDRBT, was just given like that to NPCI, not even for rupee one. And that gave considerable initial income to NPCI to actually form. We had a lot of discussion about this interesting tidbit not known to anyone. National Payments Corporation of India name was actually, I decided that. How it came, there was a lot of discussion among banks. What should we call this? Payment System Company of Banks, PSCB, somebody said. No, somebody said Payment System Company of Banks, PSB. But somebody said PSB means public sector banks. It becomes confusing. So finally, I said, no, we should give it some kind of a power. Let us call it National Payments Corporation of India. But then there were a couple of people with far-reaching foresight who said, Mr. Kaza, you are suggesting a name which by itself means that it's government and a regulatory, semi-regulatory body. But name is very powerful. People in there would start thinking they are regulators when our intention is not that. So anyway, but it remained as NPCI. I left, and NPCI name has stuck. It is stuck in their minds, and it has done a great job after that. It has actually brought in all your UPI, IMPS, what kind of seamlessly taking over all the big clearing houses of RBI, setting up the check truncation centers. It has played itself a great role. So that is the entire background history of how NPCI came into being.
Wow, very interesting, sir. This is, I think, you won't find it anywhere. If you search it even in the net, you will not find any of these things that Mr. Kaza is talking about. Very interesting. Good to know that such a big organization was set up, and how it was set up, and to know that that you were instrumental in some way or the other in setting up the NPCI and the name itself. It's great. It's an honor to have you around here, sir. Thank you very much. Good to have the insights of the making of NPCI. So while the making of NPCI, you were instrumental, there is another making happening, sir. Okay. RBI has recently released the final framework for authorization of a new umbrella entity for retail payments, similar to the NPCI. How different is the operating environment today for the NUE, and what are its implications?
Yeah, right up front, a disclaimer. Disclaimer is Sudhakar Kaza retired in 2017, no longer part of Reserve Bank of India. And whatever I say, it is nothing that, which would, I claim to be coming out of Reserve Bank of India. The environment of setting up a new umbrella organization the thinking was there after the NPCI was formed. The way it went about, first was we complied with our CPMI. Second is, if you have any for a large country like India, if you have one organization, it will tend to be monopolistic. And the common complaint from market participants was NPCI has become monopolistic. That was one. Second is, Reserve Bank of India was also very keen to create competition. Third is, if there is one organization, it's easy to influence by stakeholders by the thinking. Means stakeholders, not just the big banks, it can be government, it can be RBI, it can be anyone. You should have multiple banks and big competition going around. And by the time when this framework got released, the role of unions to actually be in a position to do something or prevent something has totally ceased to happen. So what happened when RBI released the draft itself? RBI did signal that we want competition, we want variety of services, we want them in an efficient manner. Why we want them in efficient manner now? The simply put, India gives the most secure payment systems, cost efficient, speedy, reaching to the nook and corner of the country, and the most cost efficient manner. So anyone coming in to challenge NPCI has got a tremendous kind of onerous task indeed. And
Yeah.
so what we did, what Reserve Bank of India did was, they put up a very detailed working of actually what NPCI actually does. I know many people asked why it is doing. Card playing companies are all working in they are also umbrella organizations involving so many banks, but they are all working in the same space. No, our idea is, we don't want NUE to actually duplicate UPI, to actually duplicate IMPS, to actually duplicate something which NPCI is already doing. We would want NUE to be one. Considerable leeway has been given to this, wide latitude. First thing is, the promoter can own a substantial percentage. I think it's 40%. It's not like 10% like NPCI. Second is, it need not be a Section 8 company. It can be for-profit company. That is a kind of an important thing. Then the signaling also was there, that anybody who wants to enter this, he has to enter with obviously deep pockets. One, because there is no NFS regulatory parentage gift being given to you to start with 100 crore income or 50 crore income straight away to pay your salaries. Second is, you should be prepared for long haul, and you should be ready to innovate and enter unexplored areas. Unexplored areas, you ask me later, we will develop on that. Now, why NUE has to be different in services is, you just think about it. NPCI or any NUE or NUEs which are coming, they don't actually deal with direct beneficiaries. They essentially are going to work with the same set of organizations which are part of NPCI, which are clients of
Yes.
NPCI.
Yeah.
Now, NPCI has to, be quick on its feet. Why? Because the new NUE, if it comes up with some kind of an interoperable platform which makes payments more easier than what they are now, uh, then these banks will whole hog shift to the new one. In the modern tech world, you can see that, companies which have ruled the roost, how quickly they fall.
Yeah.
We have a system, where when a huge company like Facebook, it took over another company called WhatsApp, and for 10 years later, people know Facebook as a WhatsApp company. So this kind of thing, like, radio valves and transistors example is there. Big radio valves, lot of research in radio valves was happening. Transistors came overnight, everything vanished. So if the NUE does come up with new products, and let me tell you, it's not easy to come up with new products, because
Yeah.
whatever in India, our products reach each and every person down into the villages. In fact, even during the lockdown, the government didn't find it difficult to reach money. No checks were issued. Direct benefits came directly, it went everywhere down there. People were sending money, using money, all these, IMPS, UPI and all that. So the NUE works in a new environment of total innovation, and with banks which are welcoming this. But there is one caveat that I would want to put up. I would like uh, anybody wanting to be part of NUE not to be part of NPCI, or rather, put it a different way for you. Suppose I am an ex bank who is already big and I want to form something good. I cannot have one leg in NPCI and one leg in NUE. I hope
Mm.
they would that would come out of it, and then so that there will not be any conflict of interest. So this kind of situation, that the situation that we are in is, once another NUE or couple of more, that I will talk to you in unexplored area, how you can have couple of more. The NUE is come, there will be a perfect answer. This one, a kind of a competition in among payment systems. So based on the competitiveness, both in terms of efficiency, in operations as well as cost, the people who actually serve the direct beneficiaries can change from one end to end. Literally it becomes portable. Like, some of the products which are connected to something of NPCI, if a similar but better looking product comes on the one of the 3 4 NUEs that comes up, tuck, they will connect from here to there. So that is the new environment of innovation and challenge, and a lot of people interested in it. There could be private players too.
Interesting. You made an observation that, which is of course your personal thought, that people who have a stakeholding already or have some interest in NPCI uh, cannot be this thing, because they cannot have one leg in this one and another leg in another similar entity. That's an interesting thought, and that kind of perhaps can send some signals to the market. Uh, uh, so good thought, sir. Sir, you said NPCI, National Payment Corporation of India, was like your thought, which kind of stayed on even after you left, and it became a name by itself. What about the new entity NUE? Is that the name, or is
No,
that
no, 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 no,
just
no. It's a
yeah?
even when NPCA started, we used to call it the new umbrella organization.
Okay, okay.
So I see the point is, everybody is thinking that we are starting NUE because of NPCA single point of failure. One word I keep hearing quite a lot. That we want to set up something so that there is no failure. So let me, on this point, I want to dwell a little bit so that you would understand. Any organization these days in
Sure,
the
sir.
modern tech world is supposed to have a disaster management plan and business
Yes.
continuity plan. So NPCI failing, question doesn't arise. They have wonderful backup facilities. They have a definite business continuity plans, and things will continue. And they'll have data in IDRBT or
Yes.
RBI data centers, or the 10 banks are capable of doing it. The NUE which is going to come up is totally separate with new kind of products, and to enter into unexplored areas. And of course, there should, the same person should not be there in both. A big powerful man controlling all the chotas, umbrella organization should not be there. They should, if one or two banks want to get up together with to, I can see a role for payment intermediaries like Google Pay, WhatsApp, anyone, anyone who wants to join with a bank, a Visa, Hitachi, Mastercard, Amex, joining with any one of the public sector banks, private sector banks coming forward. Two sets of banks with these players can come forward, no?
Yeah.
So
So
that would be very different. But the important point, Reserve Bank of India will ensure that all systems are interoperable.
true, sir. So in your view, what is the ideal profile of a NEU participant? Because very clearly it could be a David versus Goliath kind of a situation. Because it's a daunting task, whoever is coming.
No, it's when I think of it, when to come up with the first 100 crores, uh, uh, it was very difficult to raise even 10 crores from everybody, because everybody said Oh no, what is the point of giving you money? Just throwing the money and we don't get anything in return.
Yeah.
People like the other people who run similar platforms, what do? They give some concessions to the directors and stakeholders so that they make up their money very fast out of that. But you can give bulk discounting. NPCA started with in a totally socialist kind of a scenario. So the new entity which is going to come up, it can we have moved away from an earlier system where to create confidence in public we needed to have the public sector banks and we needed to have the private sector banks in the new entity. But in the new entity, I just think aloud, can we not have state of the art niche payment system companies which can come up with new products, joining hands with banks or not joining hands with banks, but having platforms. Some big payment system companies are bigger than banks also. You can always, it's a tech driven world. Who will drive the tech? You go to a bank, the bank again has to go to a tech company. Why not tech company directly be part of the new NUE and run its products? It's a thought that I'm having.
Yes.
I hope that would be encouraged. And that one thing, that fear is now gone. That it has to have these few big banks in it to create public confidence because RBI is handing over its baby to somebody else. That situation is over now. Reserve Bank's baby has grown into a big man and is running. So we would see interesting amalgamation of payment system companies and tech companies and
So,
payment system intermediaries. They're playing a great role now, all
so
coming in.
let me help you with four such groups. Okay, if I may say, there could be more than that.
Mm,
A fintech group, a
mm,
banking group,
mm,
a retail corporates group, and a
mm,
tech providers. Okay,
mm.
is this is these are the four groups I thought or we thought could be perhaps an amalgamation of these also. It
No,
could be any.
it can be anybody also. It may be a customer service group also. Because let me tell you, the big complaint that public is having with new systems. Some of the new systems are, we have a system of payment system intermediaries which have got which are bulk users of some of the platforms of NPCI like UPI. But these payment system intermediaries are technically not sort of authorized payment system players by Reserve Bank of India, hence not covered by banking ombudsman. Now, suppose I can give you one simple example. What are the problems? I have my mobile, and in my mobile I saved KK's number, and KK has changed his number and it has become actually TK's number. And meanwhile, I had to send money to KK. KK says, Mr. Kaza, send me 100, and I pick up and then I go for KK. Tuck, I send the money straight, it goes. And it is actually run by an intermediary. And as technically I have sent it to KK, I think I have sent it to KK. KK phones me back and says, I have not received the money. Then
Yeah,
I go back to my bank, and my bank says, no, no, you have given it to XYZ phone number, and that phone number, it has gone. You see, the new person who has taken that mobile number is also in on the same payment system intermediary. This has happened recently. And Supreme Court has ruled that payment system intermediaries are not payment system players. So these are the new kind of problems. For then what you have to do, you have to go to that umbrella organization which is running right now. It is NPCI, to find out to which number it has gone. My number is same. Then I go back to
yeah,
KK. KK says, my number is not that. I changed that number 2 years back. You sent it to an old number. Now I go back to that bank which was created. Suppose it is the XYZ or the closed Andhra Bank. Okay. Andhra Bank
yeah,
will say, no, sir, you had an agreement with the intermediary for your account to be debited in, say, ICICI Bank. It has been debited. It has been given. Even court will say that the transaction is complete and legal. Now comes the point, the person who received the money has received undue benefit. But the bank will say, yes, sir, we will try to go back to him. But this is a debit into an account. We need the authority of that person for debiting.
mm,
So when I tell you, the direct bank to bank account transfers and working through new and innovative products like that, these are the kinds of problems which are coming. Perhaps we might need a payment system ombudsman at that time, which will cover every single entity which is part of the payment process.
Yes, very good thought. Excellent, sir. Excellent. Yeah, I thought this is very interesting. Very interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are finding the discussion that I'm having with Mr. Kaza as interesting as I'm finding it. It's a lot of exciting things happening, and the new umbrella, the new entity would have, its hands full with a lot of challenges. That's for sure. But it also means that it will also have a lot of interesting things that it can do in the days to come. So I continue to have discussion with Mr. Kaza. Meanwhile, I'm sure you have a lot of questions to ask because this is a subject which is up in the air and many people are talking about it. So there could be views and challenges that you would want to kind of get clarifications from Mr. Kaza. So please feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A box. Or if you would like to ask a question directly to Mr. Kaza, you could do that by raising your hand and the digital team will ensure that you can ask a question directly to him. To answer or not question directly is the sole prerogative of Mr. Kaza. So let's move ahead. And while I wait for your questions,
Unexplored areas.
yeah, we should look at some unexplored areas. So let's
Yeah,
talk about the unexplored
unexplored.
area which Mr. Kaza was talking about.
Yes,
He said, I will talk about it. And that's that. There is something out there. There is some
yes.
spice out there.
There,
Some spice is there. Let's hear that spice, sir. Unexplored
no,
areas.
no, no, it's not a spice. See, what has happened is when we thought of existing bank account holders, how to
Yeah.
reach them faster to the new technology products like mobiles, computers, and all that. The whole game was set up in that direction, and also financial inclusion came across. And thanks to this development in fintech, financial technology, and new and payment system products, and nice, fantastic background. Like Aadhaar enabled payment systems. You had your Beam app, and then of course you had your UPI, you had your IMPS. You could connect to many mobiles and reach out even direct. One of the areas which was unexplored at that time, which was explored, was how government can make payments to beneficiaries directly, removing middlemen. Yes, we have achieved considerable. We have moved considerable distance in that, and then we have done a great job in that. But there are many unexplored areas. For example, transportation issue. Fastag, our RFID Fastag has come at last, long last, to remove the waiting list, waiting at the our toll booths.
Tools.
But
Yeah.
my dear sir, it's an RFID program. You have to be within 10 or 12 feet of that. And only after your car goes and stops there, then it reads it and then it goes. I would want a something which, as the car crosses one line somewhere, it reads and then the gate will be open. Means seamless going. The gate will fall 100 feet down. The gate will fall down if one car is not read. Means it will fall only after letting the previous car which has been read. So that kind of thing has not happened. Now, for example, I would want one transportation card. And why Fastag should have only one company attached to various banks? You should have different kind of platforms, one working on RFID, one working on something else, which is faster than RFID, all of them interoperable, and which are banking on the systems which come through the NUE, so that every car, everybody, motorcycle, nobody gets stopped on anywhere. You don't even need to brake. Now, next point. I go to various towns now, and they are having their own cards. Bombay Metro card doesn't work in Chennai Metro. Chennai Metro doesn't work in Delhi Metro. Delhi Metro doesn't work in Hyderabad Metro. Why like that? Our transportation card should be, examples people can give, like Oyster card in England, or Octopus in Hong Kong. Octopus is actually, that Octopus fellow has stopped being a transportation card, is moving into other areas. quietly. It's getting accepted everywhere. But this kind of, England is a small country, but sufficiently big country, 60 plus million people are there. So we should have numerous kind of transportation cards, or even our existing cards of the banks should work everywhere. Means you don't need to go take money in and out. Now, for example, in pandemic times, there is a fear of putting your hand somewhere or something of your somewhere. Let it be
Yeah.
tap on, and tap on should be on and off at your own discretion. So that kind, which you can do through your mobile, you can on your tap on mobile, you tap on somewhere and then you proceed. So things like that, these are the unexplored areas, where a large segments of multiple payments are getting made, and where still cash is being used, or multiple cards are being used, where the customer is carrying a whole set of cards. You're sticking something on your car, and then you're using your card for transportation, then you're using something else to buy milk. These kind of things should stop. And then there is a niche NUE will come up, because in India, thankfully, for every single area like this, there is enough scale for
Yes.
a large organization to survive. When you talk of a transportation card, yes, sir, you're talking of hundreds of millions of people straight away. You're straight away talking of a system which many national countries cannot even match in terms of size. So when we say that NUE will come up, don't think of an NUE which will duplicate NPCI. NPCI can never be undermined. Let me tell you, the person who comes up first is the man. He is the first man. Only if he starts sleeping and all, people will overtake him. He has come up with enough number of products, and I think more products than what he can manage at the present point of time. So we will get into new farmer areas, student areas. Now you go to Harvard University, what would you find? They'll go and they'll give you one card. Now that one card is the be all and end all of your life in Harvard. You
Yeah.
don't need any other card. So this kind of local cards, which will again interact with bigger cards elsewhere, and still bigger international cards will come up. I'm not necessarily saying cards. Please, there's nothing like a card these days. It will be
Yeah.
in mobile, and tomorrow it will just be in your eyesight, or it will be in your thumb, or it will be in your face also. You bought a whole lot of things and all, and then you shown your face somewhere and you walk out, your bank is debited, done.
Yes.
Or your account, not why expose our bank to that? An intermediary, something which I have put for groceries, my bank account has got 10 lakh rupees, but groceries subsection has got only 5,000 rupees. When I show my face, it only in a grocery shop, it will only go to that 5,000. Can you think of that? Means
Yeah.
even if somebody hacks, he gets up to 5,000 only.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
so
True.
this is what we are looking at. We are looking at an explosion of innovation, literally, an innovation explosion. And of course, it goes without saying, in India, anything which is costly in India doesn't survive. It doesn't take off. So an explosion of innovation, giving cost benefits. And of course, the banks are also, should I say, very mean. If tomorrow an NUE comes up with a great product, they will just dump any existing thing just without even a second thought. Or I am also looking at a situation where, just like when I get onto my mobile and say, it asks me, you want IMPS, you want UPI, you want NEFT, you want RTGS. No, that fellow tomorrow might ask me, you want NUE1, NUE2, NUE3, or you want our good old NPCI.
Yeah.
So this is the scene. I think we are running out of time. I'll leave time for questions.
No, we have time. What you talked about, the transportation, that also brings years ago in Singapore, they have that. Every car, that there is nothing to stop a car.
Yeah, I know.
You
I've
just have
seen
to.
that. I've seen that.
Yeah, because otherwise, like our toll, the traffic comes to a halt. Even with FASTag, a traffic comes to a halt, which should not happen. And I think that's a great idea to have that. So, like I said, sir, we have these questions coming to you. So let's take a audio question directly, And it comes from none other than Mr. Harish Prabhu, who is an experienced banker for himself. Mr. Prabhu, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Kaza. Always a pleasure and a privilege to hear you, listen to you.
Good evening. Good
Good
evening.
evening. Yeah, so my question is, apart from potentially reducing systemic and concentration risk, right? And the problems of monopolies wherever globally, I don't see the NUE to be viable, firstly, in terms of really providing newer innovative products and not just alternatives to the current NPCI product stack, right? I mean, since you mentioned quite a few use cases which are obviously need, that innovation, but financially also viability, given ownership structure, 40% domestic promoters, and the balance, cap table might have, a combination of investors, right? And everybody having to actually have, and this is a for-profit entity, they have to have equal sort of focus on the business as well as multiple deep-pocketed shareholders as investors, right? And given the long gestation, how will this ever work? I mean, I'm asking both questions, both in terms of the market that they are trying to address, as well as the shareholder related issues.
Listen, Harish, you are asking the right person, this question, because when I was sitting in the meetings of forming NPCI, there were enough doomsday predictors who said that if you remove this big bank from 1028 clearing houses, who will run 1028 clearing houses? It never struck them that there won't be 1028 clearing houses in future. So let me first assure you that new umbrella organization concept has nothing to do with reducing concentration risk or anything of NPCI. It is to bring in competition, and it is to enhance the service for the existing people. And another interesting thing I want to tell you, if you have one single concentrated large organization in India, which is a quasi regulatory organization, it can never go global, because to go global you will have to comply with these bigger payment system providers like Visa, Mastercard. They comply with 125 regulatory jurisdictions. It's not possible for anything which is quasi regulatory and government owned or this owned to go to become that big. So but in a niche area, transportation area, if you come up with some great concept, you can first start off with the SARC nations and other nations, and we can create a global player from India. Or this fellow can expand globally through somebody else. So the plan is, this is the next stage. Please don't ever think of that you require 1,000 crores to start. For example, the tap on phone concept is there. I can comfortably tell you, yes, there are very small companies which have got all the compliances and protocols in place for that, and that much of money has not been spent, and some big banks have taken those products of those companies, and then slowly that will form a part of some NUE. So whenever we set up something, like I was a project leader for check truncation, uh, enough people said, no, this will never work, there'll be too many frauds, check truncation will fail. When NEFT was set up, it was very difficult to think. For 100 days we ran with only 4 banks and maximum 100 transactions. But where is NEFT today? So please be assured, Harish, there are a lot of people out there, and now this we have opened it out. It's no longer RBI and banks. This will have direct stakeholders like fintech companies, payment system platform people, intermediary people. They can set up, and they've got very, very deep pockets. So they can do it, and deep pockets, that deep a pocket is may not be required. So please be optimistic. Yes, we are going ahead. We are going to do a great job of it.
Sure, sure. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks. Another point I may add here is that who thought that India will be a superpower of IT, right? In some
Yeah.
years before, nobody thought about it. But look at the things that we have created for ourselves. We are the leading country in IT sites. So yeah, anything is possible. I have another question to you from Mr. Pushpendra Khandelwal. He says, sir, yeah, this is relating to the mobile example you gave. So he says, sir, likewise, you gave the example of mobile of KK. My question is, how the payment will be settled in case of the credit card is renewed and money was refunded by some merchant with the old card?
No, but these things, the time lag put will be very little. But yes, this will also be issued. This will all, credit card getting closed is one issue. The credit card getting, for some reason it stops functioning is one issue. But these are all the issues. That's why I want a payment system grievance handling person. Because the next jump will be a feature phone. And once a feature phone form comes, that latitude, that the ease facilitation which is there in a smartphone is not there.
Not
I
yeah.
expect mistakes to happen because feature phones are also held by people who may not be that smart as smartphone holders, but or may not be. But these kind of issues that you have mentioned, settled out of a credit card or things like that, these kind of issues are already happening. Already banking ombudsmen are getting the cases, and of course NPCI is very very helpful, because even my case of that wrong credit or debit had one case which was there. They had to go to NPCI, and they do provide the information. All that they say is this went to this bank, because if I had paid KK, it should have gone to SBI, but the new KK, it went to Indian Bank. So once you get that information, and that banks are helpful, but there's no legal, quasi-legal ombudsman teeth in that operation. So to
Mm.
have that kind of teeth, you need this cards. This thing, yes, this scenario that you have suggested. Yes, it can happen. It will happen, of course. And then if it automatically goes to the earlier, some rules should come, that if after a card is closed, money comes into the previous card, this thing, there should be a system of where they should credit. Everybody while closing his account should tell, if anything comes back, you credit to this account. Some kind of rules should come into, protocol should come into place.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Khandelwal. A good question. So, what are your views of the on Google and WhatsApp? These two have transformed themselves from just being what they are. Google being a internet search and WhatsApp being a messenger. They have gone into the payment side big time. And so, my question to you is, what is your view about the effectiveness of Google Pay and WhatsApp Pay as NEU participants?
Okay, let me tell you. As on today in India, they are legally payment system intermediaries, and they are not authorized payment system players. Essentially, they hand over the transaction to a payment authorized payment system player or a bank. The debit is going to a bank, and the credit is going to a bank or to an authorized player only. So, but what you have to also see is the tremendous power of global reach and ability to move money, men, money, and material that these mega companies bring into play. Even a company
Yes.
like TCS or Infosys and all, they are far bigger than banks with the commitment and ability to get something done. Yes, Google Pay does nothing actually. It links to a bank account, and at the back end there is a UPI. But it already has got this many users. It already has got this many users. Can you not think of a payment system being started by Bombay Suburban Railway? Millions of users are straight away ready made there. When you
Yeah.
buy your, they will say this is your monthly card or weekly card and all, and that also is a kind of payment system. And whatever money you put there, you can send it to somebody else. He will seek payment system authorization for becoming a payment system player. But I would rather want to have to bring in new kinds of innovation with, of course, enough technical as well as legal and regulatory safeguards to manage companies like that. And fortunately, Reserve Bank is already having an upper hand on all these things. You have to have data within India and things like that and all that, because this is very sensitive information about every private individual in the country. So
Yeah.
but then I have to admit that I agree 100% that you bring in these big players, you are bringing in a lot of scope for additional innovation, which otherwise will be limited to a particular area. You are widening the area.
Absolutely. Okay, let's take another question coming. It comes all the way from Chennai. Tyagarajan. Tyag, can you please ask a question?
Good evening, sir. It's great to have you on the platform. In fact,
Good evening, Tyagarajan.
Yes, sir. In fact, I remember you were the first one on the platform of BBD when we started. And today we have crossed more than a century and going strong.
Yes,
thanks
yes.
to our team and thanks to you, sir. So my question is, payments is a big volume business. It's all about scale and huge transactions happening. And my question is, which payments area would you bet on that would give exponential growth of volume and scale, other than the one example you said, transportation or mobility? Which other payments area would you bet on, sir?
Anything, yeah, from groceries purchase to everything.
I think you mentioned about suburban trains. That's also the big one.
Yes, suburban trains comes in transportation only. Any kind of payment that you make, that fellow will come and say, sir, please look into the camera. Yes, payment done, sir. Thank you. Out. And that goes to the subsection that you have allocated within your bank account to that particular thing, or subsection of some wallet account of that. So for the next big area to take over is transportation. Yes, the one very large area where it will take over is agricultural and other rural businesses. That would be one very big area for payment system innovation. We need to get more and more things onto platforms which are documented. I mean, anything going out from rural sales for handicrafts or your weavers, everything happening, that everything becomes it becomes part of a documentation which will help the system to do a lot of work for them. Information is power in this area.
How about healthcare, sir? Would you bet on healthcare?
Obviously, healthcare card is the most obvious thing. There's nothing to think. I would want healthcare cards to automatically link up with the insurance system, so that there's no TPA fellow in between, the TPA person sanctioning something and doing something for you and all that. You have your healthcare now. Reserve Bank of India is now coming to a new healthcare card, because every year what is happening, the TPA is changing and the insurance company is changing. We are having a lot of problems. So one health card, and they will carry that health card till their death. So like that, every Indian can have a health card, because the central government is covering under these Arogya programs. Millions, tens of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people are included in healthcare systems. So the world out there is beckoning us. We need to go there and do it. And in each one of these niche areas, there is a niche private player already, who so far did not find an entry. Now he will find the entry.
True, sir. Sir, just one more question, sir. In the NUE, what is your take on some surprises on shockers in terms of the players? It's just, you don't have to name, but as you said, in healthcare or something, what is your take, sir?
See, if everybody pays through a card and all that, all this cash will vanish from most of the places. And cash is there in many of these systems because of taxation. They are doing some arbitrage on your tax loss. Okay, let us put it that way. So that kind of things are going to vanish, and you would get a very true picture of the nation as to what they are doing in the various areas.
Thank you, Tyag. So we have an interesting question coming your way, Mr. Kaza. Mr. Nijay Gupta asked a question. He says, sir, payment banks are not successful so far. Of course, they are new, relatively new. Can you suggest merging payment banks to be part of the new umbrella unit with unexplored areas like Oyster, etc.?
Let me tell you, see, payment banks are not successful because they have got what are called as regulatory handicaps. You cannot take a deposit of more than 1 lakh. You cannot give a loan. You cannot do bank. A bank means you take deposits of money for the purposes of loaning. You cannot do that. These were initially started with an idea, with slowly RBI will relax, and they have told that after 3 years a payment bank can become a small bank. Once you become a small service bank, then obviously then you become a full-fledged bank. And of course, nowhere in the NUE concept is it stated that the payment bank cannot be part of the NUE.
Yeah.
Payment bank can of course be part of NUE, and then it can come up with niche products so that they can make more money out of a subsidiary of that payment bank. That is possible. The payment bank as a concept has not failed. It is not a regulatory stranglehold. A form of protection which was given has become a major handicap. And that's why it was very unfortunate. Out of 10 people so licensed, half of them have actually returned back the license.
Yeah. So my question to you is, you are a regulator and you're now on the other side. So what would be your recommendations to the regulator so that it can ensure a high level of playing field, fair competition between the players?
First is, a regulator should not have a bank bias. Although RBI is the regulator for banks, it should not have a bank bias. One, not a bias in favor of the existing big players. Three, it should ensure that if any big player is part of one entity, it should not be part of another entity.
Yeah.
Then four is not have a bias against small players, because the really niche tech companies are small, and they should be able to join into this kind of things to come up with niche products. So to have an open mind, and I'm sure RBI would be going in this kind of directions. Opening up will be done slowly, but here they should do it very fast, because there might be somebody who has got a NUE for farm fertilizer and other fertilizers, somebody who will be dealing in poultry and other areas and all. That kind of things should be possible, and very small players, because there are downward linkages in this kind of supply chains which need to be paid, which cannot be part of any of the bigger payment system platforms. The big NUE will only provide and you will come to a system tomorrow where the small niche NUEs will actually link up to UPI, IMPS, or the bigger platforms of the big payment system companies. So this is what should be done. There should not. And an important point that I would suggest is, please have a payment system grievance redressal ombudsman who will cover every single player in the system. You don't say that the intermediary is not mine, or whatever act has to be passed in the parliament should be passed, so that if it cannot be covered under our banking ombudsman, under the RBI Act or something, we should be able to cover it through something else.
Right, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've come to the hour of this particular program, and so we have to wind up the program right now. And so, keeping in view the time. So I hope you enjoyed the program. I really enjoyed discussing with Mr. Kaza. There's so many inputs, and he thinks from a regulator point of view. He thinks from the participants' point of view. So there's a lot to learn, a lot to know about the new umbrella entity that's coming out. We will have such discussions. We are having a next week a panel discussion again, because this topic needs to be debated, needs to be expressed, and a collective opinion formed, so that when the new entities are established by RBI, these opinions are also taken into consideration. So, and this is for the good of the country. It's good for the people of the country, good for the retail payments, good for the citizens. With these words, please join me in thanking Mr. Kaza, coming, spending our time. Like he said, this was, it was a decision that we had to bring him on board quickly. So he did come, he did oblige, and thank you very much for that, Mr. Kaza. Profusely, thank you for that. And thanks for coming, spending out your time with us, and telling us all about the new umbrella entity. Thank you. Good evening and have a nice day.
Thank you, KK. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Good night.